The allure of surface logic. Surface truth versus fundamental assumptions. The danger of seeming logical. Have you ever found yourself agreeing with an argument simply because it sounded logical, only to later realize that something about it doesn't quite add up? It's fascinating how things that seem logical on the surface can often mislead us into accepting false conclusions. We might instinctively trust an argument when it feels coherent, especially when it aligns with our own desires, beliefs, or fears. But is that enough to prove something true? When we dig a little deeper, we might start to question whether logic alone is enough. What if the logic is based on flawed assumptions? What if the coherence we perceive is merely surface level, and once we scratch beneath that surface, we uncover contradictions? In these moments, we realize that a seemingly valid argument can be built on shaky foundations. This is why it's so crucial for us to examine the assumptions underlying any argument or belief we encounter. But how do we go about this deeper analysis? What tools do we have to distinguish between what feels true and what is true? As we engage with ideas, it's important not to take them at face value, but to explore their foundations. If we don't, we risk being deceived by ideas that seem valid, but are ultimately incoherent when scrutinized more closely. By working together to ask the right questions and dig into the underlying premises, we can begin to uncover the real truth behind what we're being presented with. How flawed premises lead to false conclusions. Seeming logic can mask underlying flaws in reasoning. To illustrate this, consider the following examples of how flawed premises lead to false conclusions. Pyramid schemes. At first glance, pyramid schemes appear to be a logical and profitable business. The pitch often goes something like this. If you invest $100, recruit 2 people, and they recruit 2 more, your return will multiply exponentially. You'll be at the top of a growing network, earning passive income indefinitely. This argument seems logical because it relies on simple mathematics and the appeal of exponential growth. However, the premise that there will always be enough new recruits to sustain the scheme is fundamentally flawed. When analyzed, it becomes clear that the system is unsustainable. The pool of potential recruits is finite, and once it runs out, the scheme collapses, leaving most participants with losses. The apparent logic fails because it rests on an unrealistic assumption of infinite growth. Cult recruitment tactics. Cults often present themselves as logical and appealing, offering answers to life's deepest questions. The arguments might sound like this. The world is full of confusion and lies. We have discovered a higher truth, which only we can reveal to you. Join us, and you will find clarity and purpose. This reasoning seems plausible because it appeals to our desire for meaning and coherence. However, the underlying premise, that this group uniquely possesses the truth, is rarely examined. Upon closer scrutiny, we often find that the group's claims are based on unverifiable or circular reasoning, such as, we're right because our leader says so, and our leader is right because we say so. The argument collapses because its foundational premise is incoherent. It's false. Superficial scientific claims. Another example can be found in pseudo-scientific products, such as certain miracle cures. A common claim might be, this supplement boosts your immune system by 300%, protecting you from all illnesses. This statement seems logical because a stronger immune system sounds beneficial. However, the underlying assumptions that the product actually works as claimed and that an overactive immune system is always beneficial are rarely questioned. Closer examination often reveals no credible evidence for the product's efficacy and ignores the reality that an overactive immune response can lead to autoimmune disorders. The surface logic is appealing, but it's fundamentally flawed. Why seeming logic persuades us. Our brains are wired to seek patterns and coherence, so when something seems logical, we naturally gravitate towards it. This tendency can be helpful, but it also makes us vulnerable to deception. Arguments that are superficially logical often appeal to emotions such as fear, hope, or desire, which can override our critical thinking. For example, pyramid schemes exploit our desire for financial security. Cults play on our longing for meaning and belonging. Pseudoscientific claims target our fear of illness. These emotional appeals, combined with surface-level logic, create a powerful illusion of truth, making it harder to question the underlying premises. The importance of examining fundamental assumptions. To avoid being misled, we must always look beyond the surface and examine the premises that form the foundation of any argument. Key questions to ask include: what assumptions are being made? Are these assumptions consistent with reality? Is there any evidence to support these premises? By applying this scrutiny, we can identify flaws in the seemingly logical argument and protect ourselves from deception. For instance, in pyramid schemes, the assumption of infinite growth fails under basic arithmetic. In a cult's claims, the assumption of exclusive access to truth lacks evidence and is often circular. In pseudoscience, the assumption of efficacy often falls apart when subjected to rigorous testing. The need for critical thinking. Seeming logic can be dangerously persuasive, leading us to accept falsehoods that feel true. To live in alignment with the truth, we must be willing to question the premises of any argument, even when it aligns with our desires or fears. Examining fundamental assumptions allows us to distinguish between arguments that are genuinely coherent and those that merely appear so. By remaining vigilant and critical, we can avoid the traps of scams, cults, and other deceptions, ensuring that our beliefs and actions are grounded in reality. This commitment to seeking the truth protects us from being led astray and helps us to live with integrity and coherence.